This is me at 24. I'm eating mac and cheese at some bar in Scotland, just feeling utterly confused about where I'm going in life. And I think I'm not the only one at 24 who felt a little bit lost. I was just constantly wondering where to go next and having no idea what it was I was chasing. Rosetta Stone are collaborating with me in this video where I will tell you how learning a language, Chinese to be specific, completely changed my life in all aspects imaginable. So Rosetta Stone is a language learning app with 25 different languages for you to improve and maintain your language skills, or to help you get started if you're planning to learn a new language. I, however, did not really plan to learn Chinese. I feel like Chinese kind of happened to me. When I first was a student in Shanghai, I didn't care that much for the language, other than that I found it quite fascinating. It was not until towards the end of my semester that I realized I'd spent 6 months in China but knew almost nothing about Chinese language or Chinese culture for that matter. Then I felt a bit embarrassed. So in a sense, my Chinese language learning came from a place of embarrassment. Embarrassment and quite a large dose of curiosity. Language itself is not life-changing, but the doors a language can open up might be life-changing. And I would even argue that it has a tendency to be so. I would say I first experienced the power of speaking Chinese in the beginning of 2016. After a semester of studying, I decided to set out on my first bigger solo journey in China. And what a journey it was. I spent close to 50 hours on trains, practicing my speaking with fellow passengers.
Welcome to China!
This previous footage though was not from 2016. I didn't film much back then, so that was the footage you saw was from like an 18-hour train journey I took later on. During this trip, my first solo trip, I remember the longest train ride I've ever taken, which was 34 hours. It was one of the slowest trains from Chengdu to Shanghai, and I didn't even have a seat. I only managed to get a standing ticket, but because I spoke Chinese, a little bit of Chinese, I managed to make some friends and they kind of squeezed me into their seats, which I was very, very grateful for. During this trip, I worked on a farm. This is a farm in Sichuan called Sani Nongchang. Here I am planting ginger. And this is also my first ever Chinese New Year. We celebrated it on the farm and they put up these red lanterns all over. They had a big lake, so all around the lake were just full of red lanterns, and it was so beautiful. I also hiked Meishan, and it was in winter, so it was really beautiful. And this is also the first time I saw wild monkeys. They're so cute, so cute. During this trip, I was invited to a remote Buddhist monastery in the mountains of Sichuan. And I was invited by a friend I made at my hostel, the Tibetan monk, and we got to know each other all in Chinese. I visited that monastery later that spring. It was really interesting. So beautiful with all the red huts and the surroundings, so beautiful. Here are all the monks. It's called Sedai in Chinese, I think Sedai in Tibetan. I don't remember. I know he told me, but I haven't been keeping up with my Tibetan. So it was a really interesting experience and I'm very grateful for it. The thing is that I would have been so different if I had spoken no Chinese. Traveling to smaller towns and rural areas, it's very unlikely that you stumble upon anyone who speaks English. So being able to express and understand even the basics makes a huge difference. Like finding a room for the night, getting the right tickets, ordering food, or paying for something you bought. All things that make your travel so much smoother, and also all things that you can learn in the Rosetta Stone app. When setting up your account, you will be able to choose from 4 categories or 4 goals: travel, basics and beyond, work, and family. And this is the thing I really love about Rosetta Stone, because I find it very motivating to know that the app is helping me to learn what I need at this certain period in my life. And the funny thing is that I feel like these categories are all representative of the different stages of my life here in China. The traveling, when focusing on studying, family, and okay, maybe not work.
对不起，我很忙，我得工作。
对不起，我很忙，我得工作。I never needed to learn Chinese for work, at least not for those typical situations, not for the office talk and the fancy meetings. But Chinese is one of my working languages. in that I conduct interviews in Chinese, I film people who speak in Chinese, and I write subtitles of whatever it is they say. Generally not at all business related though. But work-wise, speaking Chinese has opened up so many new possibilities and opportunities.
I'm gonna take you along to...
When it comes to how I make my income, Chinese is an essential ingredient, and also for how I see myself working in the future. These videos, these stories I share on my channel, they would not exist without me speaking Chinese. And the projects I'm about to take on this year and coming years, exciting news on this front coming later on this spring, by the way. They all rely on me speaking another language than my mother tongue. I don't have perfect Chinese, far from it, but that's not the point of speaking a language. The point is communication. You don't need to speak perfectly, making yourself understood and being able to understand others, that is the point. That's when you can truly start exploring this other culture, this other country, and this other world. After a year of studying Chinese, in the early summer of 2016, I visited the Buddhist village I was invited to on my first solo trip. I remember sitting out on the grassland, surrounded by bare mountains, vultures circulating the sky, talking about the Tibetan wheel of life with my friend, in Chinese. Not because I knew how to say Tibetan wheel of life in Chinese, but because we knew how to describe what we talked about in very simple words and analogies. In certain settings, grammar and, vocabulary is a must. But in everyday life settings, when you're exploring a country and a culture, it's not. The best way to improve and learn is to surround yourself by the language, to listen to music, watch films in the language, maybe set your phone and computer language to the one you're learning, reading books, playing games, or, moving in with a family that speaks another language. Rosetta Stone are also pushing for immersive learning that does not include a constant translation between your language and the one you are studying. Instead, you begin a bit like a child. You listen and speak and read and write in your new language only, and in a fun, game-like way. And of course, they have a great discount going on right now. Their lifetime subscription is usually $299, but now it's only $179. The lifetime subscription means that you get access to all the languages in the app forever through a one-time payment. And you can find a link to this discount in the description box and in the comment section as well. Speaking Chinese made it possible for me to travel all over China.
Miriam, don't crash us!
To see new places and meet new friends. It opened a new world for me, gave me insight to new cultures, new ways of thinking, new ways of seeing the world. I got to learn new cooking practices and try out new lifestyles. Speaking Chinese has given me my dream job, and it has given me my Chinese family. Talking about how Chinese changed my life, it's obviously impossible not to mention my husband. This is us here, and this is one of the absolute first pictures I took of him. So it was in 2016. It was almost a year after we met, but it was the first time I visited Qinghai. And this is also the first time I visited Qinghai. Look, there I am. I'm wearing a little kid's jacket from like a 4-year-old child, a local up in the mountains. It was June and I did not expect a lot of snow. A man I fell in love with who knew no other language than Chinese. Good thing I was studying just that, Chinese full-time. I got to know another person in Chinese on a level I had never gotten to know anyone before. I got to know someone in Chinese that turned my whole world upside down. 老公啊，我的中文现在进步了吗？你觉得？如果跟我们刚认识的时候比？
哦，那刚认识的时候你就说谢谢、想你、胖子、你好，在其他你啥都不会说呀。
Because of him, I decided to move to rural Qinghai. Because of him, I now have a Chinese family. A family that I live with, talk with, joke with, cook with, work with, plan a future with, and even argue with in Chinese. There are so many stories I would never have heard, so many people I would not have known, so many thoughts that would have never crossed my mind, so much of what is now me that would have never been. A very different life I would have lived if it was not for Chinese.